It's 2 a.m. at the Nexus Resort on Borneo's northwest coast. While some of the hotel's guests are just getting to bed, in other rooms the lights are coming on as 80 athletes get ready for their second day of racing at the world's richest adventure race, the Outdoor Quest.
Hey, good morning.
With a 3-hour bus journey to the start and a long day's racing ahead, it's vital that the athletes pick the right food from the breakfast buffet.
I'll get some toast with some good complex carbohydrates and some fat and protein, so it helps to sustain the blood sugar release over the day.
Others are slightly less scientific in their approach to nutrition.
You can tell I look a bit of a wreck, folks, for those who just joined us. So I'm going to try to get a couple of winks for the last 10 minutes. I'm going to take brekkie on the run.
We're going to leave on time today.
Most of these athletes have competed in the big expedition races where sleep deprivation and discomfort are ever present. So breakfast and a bus to the start line are relative luxuries, even at 2:30 in the morning. While the athletes make their way north, Tinny Tung and her logistics team are already hard at work preparing the start area. The logistics involved in moving the team's pre-packed equipment boxes to the right places are immense and often involve working throughout the night. But as the last trucks arrive at the northern tip of Borneo, they're rewarded with a magnificent dawn on one of the island's most beautiful beaches. As the moon wanes and the sun rises, the predictions of a fiercely hot day are already looking correct.
We're looking for a nice shady spot. We expect to have a lot of hot athletes coming through here, so we need ice and a shady spot.
Heat and humidity will be the biggest single concern for the race medical team and the athletes themselves.
Break, this is Ian. I think I see a bus. In fact, I do see a bus approaching the start.
As the athletes pour off to stretch muscles cramped by the 3-hour journey, the medical team is already hard at work.
Carla here.
George Christensen of Team Nike ACG is nursing a broken wrist, sustained just the day before the race started. The strapping will help, but he's in for a long and painful stage. And he isn't alone. With just one of the 5 stages completed, a number of the athletes are already feeling battered and bruised. That first stage took place around the grounds of the Nexus Resort. In the tradition of the Outdoor Quest's opening day, the 3-race Super Sprint Series was fast, frantic, and a lot of fun.
Okay, folks, race 2 is run, bike, kayak.
Team coming on the run, do transition.
It was the all-male Team Irule who came home in first place. But it was a traumatic day for reigning champion Seagate, whose captain Nathan Fave was suffering from an irregular heartbeat that seriously undermined his performance.
Yeah, feeling good so far. We're feeling better. Yeah. Back in normal rhythm. Got my medication with me. Yeah.
The northern tip of Borneo is the focal point for the day's racing, and the athletes already know that somewhere along the way they'll have to negotiate an adventure skill in one of its sheltered bays. But as they gather nervously at the start line, they're in for a surprise from course director Ian Adamson. The teams can choose any one of 4 separate occasions that the race passes by the adventure skill site to do the test.
Listen up, this is important. This is really important. If you choose to do the adventure skill first, you just turn around and go back through the TA, up to the road, go left.
A last-minute tactical decision now confronts the teams.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
All but 2 of the teams head out in kayaks into the clear blue waters of the South China Sea for a 3-kilometre paddle around the tip. That paddle is just the start of a day that will take the athletes through some of the most beautiful areas of northern Borneo. The adventure skill at the tip will add a new tactical dimension to the race. But, as expected, most have chosen to negotiate the 3-kilometre kayak leg first. When completed, they'll find themselves in a cove on the eastern side of the tip. The next leg is a 7-kilometre coastal run to Kalambu Beach, where an adventure skill in the water awaits. From Kalambu, a team biathlon of 6 kilometres on dirt and gravel roads heads inland to a transition area where the teams pick up 2 more bikes for a 35-kilometre ride through paddy fields, jungle and beaches before turning north back to the tip of Borneo, where a 15-minute mandatory rest stop awaits. And that rest will be needed. A 17-kilometre kayak along the eastern coast heads south towards Backback Beach and the final transition area. The sting in the tail is a 7-kilometre skate into the town of Kudat and the welcome sight of the finish line after 76 kilometres of hard racing.
Well, you've got 2 teams coming your way over.
As the kayaks head around the tip, Seagate and Astor Factor have made for the adventure skill.
We decided that the best time to do the adventure skill would be when it would be less congested, so our plan was to wait on the start line until the other teams had gone and see how many teams were left standing there, and then we would do the adventure skill immediately. And as soon as the gun went off and the teams left, there was only us and one other team standing there, and because the adventure skill can effectively take 2 teams at a time, both our teams went and did it, and I think it was probably the right decision.
But as Seagate negotiate the zip line, the lead kayakers have already rounded the tip and are heading towards a bay on the east coast of the peninsula. Team Irul, the leaders after stage 1, are the first to reach the rocky beach area. But behind them, the field is tightly bunched as the relative cool of the early morning is replaced by the heat of Borneo's tropical sun. As Seagate enter the transition area after completing the zip line, Team Astor Factor are right behind them.
Team 20 have passed through the zip line.
The 2 now have to follow in the wake of the other 18 teams who chose not to do the adventure skill straight away. While the reigning champions get away, Astafactor's Addy Good Vibes, as ever, has time for a quick word.
Folks, it was a gamble. We're right here at Seagate. I'll catch you guys later.
As the kayakers set off, the rest of the field is already making its way around the slippery rocks of the tip, with Irul still in the lead. As Seagate pull ahead of Astafactor, Irul reach the transition area.
Teams entering TA, teams coming into TA. Attention, everyone.
With Nokia just behind them and a group of chasing teams just a few hundred meters adrift, Irul decide that now is the time to tackle the zip line. Nokia make the same decision. For the rest, the decision is harder. With two teams already heading up to the zip line, a bottleneck could keep them waiting for their turn.
Swag water, anybody?
Our option to do the adventure skill to start with wasn't going to be there because there was only two teams would be there and there'd be a queue at the adventure skill. So we decided towards later on in the race things will be more spread out and we'd have a better shot at going there without any other teams being in the way.
We thought, right, let's just get out there and do the first paddle. Wasn't a very big one. If we come out of the paddle first, we'd go straight up and do it, because then there would be no queue. And even if some other teams went and did it straight away, by the time we'd finished that paddle, the backlog would have been over and done with.
For Marcel Hagener, it's not the best of landings on the abrasive sand of the beach.
4 teams on the run now.
As Team Montreal set off on the run towards Kalambu Beach in the company of Team Switzerland, they trail the leaders, Nike ACG, by a few hundred meters. But all the teams know that their race positions are unclear, as they still have the zip line to negotiate later in the day. Back at the transition area, Irul prepare to set off in chase after a few running repairs.
Go!
Nokia Adventure enter the transition at almost the same time.
Man, these guys, they are...
Ahead of the teams is 7 kilometers of beach, jungle trail and slippery rock. Nike ACG are the first to reach the jungle tracks over one of the coastal headlands. FVB, Solid Pack and Team Buff are just a few meters behind. Cowboy Miala of Power Bar Malaysia heads a group that includes Montreal and Team Switzerland.
Okay, perfect.
Nokia Adventure are moving well in the dense thicket and have pushed ahead of Irul. And Seagate have completed their kayak and aren't too far behind. But things aren't going well for Astafactor's Harold Zundel.
My stomach was getting a little bloated and I was a little worried about it because I'd never had that feeling before. And it's a struggle, mental struggle, and you know, some people deal with it by not continuing on, and some people deal with it by at least giving an effort and, you know, trying to finish that day.
As Team FVB, Solid Pack leave the jungle and return to the beach, they're just behind the leaders, Nike ACG. The 3 Americans and 1 Kiwi are pushing hard to try and open up a gap before they reach the adventure skill at Kalambu Beach. Behind them, Team Buff have inexplicably missed one of the course markers, and only the vigilance of a local spectator sends them back down to the beach. Nike ACG, FVB and Buff are the first to hit the slippery rocks on the approach to the next transition area.
Meillä lähti aika kivasti juoksu käyntiin heti, eli siinä oli coasteneering, tällainen rannalla juoksu ja valittiin erittäin pitäväpohjaiset kengät ja monet muut joukkueet kun vieressä liukasteli, niin me kyllä edettiin aika hyvin ja me päästiin aika hyvään vauhtiin heti juoksualussa Nike-joukkueen jälkeen.
For many of the athletes, the algae-covered rock is something of an ordeal. Up ahead, Nike emerge from the rocks and enter the transition area first, but they're still being tracked by FVB Solid Pack, who pulled away from Team Buff. For most of the teams, the underwater adventure skill on the beautiful sand spit at Kalambu Beach will be a welcome break from the unremitting heat. But as Nike ACG prepare in the transition area, both Mike Closer and Michael Tobin are trying to ward off unpleasant memories of Kalambu from last year's race.
Anyone else has goggles here? Bottles.
Helmets off. Okay, the seal loose, you take these onto the one of them, onto the raft. Okay, that's it.
It was in this very spot that Nike ACG's hopes of winning the outdoor quest met a watery end. The team entered the ocean in first place on the stage with a real hope of taking the overall title, but had to watch as team after team passed them by as they searched in vain for a checkpoint hidden beneath the waves. This time the test is less complicated. A heavy weight has to be carried out and deposited in a raft.
We were a little nervous running up to that section, and we remember what happened last year very well. And it was a fun little adventure skill they had us do, but it was tamed a little bit from last year, so we appreciate that.
This time there are no slip-ups, and as Team FVB head into the water, Nike ACG have opened up a substantial lead for the first time. With more than 40 kilometers of team biathlon and mountain biking to come, Nike's expert riders have taken control of the race. As Team Buff lead the chasing pack towards the transition area at Kalambu Beach, Nike ACG are already preparing to leave on the 6-kilometer biathlon leg, followed closely by FVB Solid Pack. The overall race leaders iRule are just behind Buff, with reigning champion Seagate also making good progress. As FVB leave on the biathlon leg in pursuit of Nike ACG, they're met by an unexpected sight. A group of teams are arriving in the transition area from the opposite direction, having missed a course marker and taken a wrong turn. In this instance, the race rules don't involve a time penalty for the athletes who've strayed off course, but in the heat of the day, the extra kilometers are a severe penalty in themselves. As FVB head away from Kalambu, the chasing teams now need to negotiate the watery adventure skill as quickly as possible.
Take one of these into the raft. 4 people here. One go into the raft.
As Montreal emerge from the ocean, they're one of a group of elite teams to join Buff as they prepare to set off on the chase after Nike ACG and FVB Solid Pack. But things aren't going so well for Astor Factor. One of the teams to have taken a wrong turn, they've lost ground on all their rivals.
I got all this stuff.
Unfortunately, we all missed the marker, about 8 teams, maybe 9, including the Aussies on Team Aztecs. Must have been a good K down and a K back, an extra 2 Ks, which I didn't plan in this race.
Get some of that water into you. Put something in your mouth.
And it's paid its toll a bit. My team's a bunch of runners. I wish there was bloody surfing in this race, you know, guys. Then we'd show them a thing or two.
As the biathlon leg begins for the chasing pack, the real heat of the day is beginning to make itself felt.
Make sure your shirts are soaking cold. Good, let's go. Get something to drink on the way out, guys. Been a long, hot ride.
For Japan's East Wind, another team to have missed the course marker, the troubles continue to mount. For the Japanese quartet and the rest of the field, the chase is now on. While the locals know a few tricks to keep themselves cool, back in the TA, the heat has taken its toll on Karen Stokes of Team Mastronet.
How are you feeling there? You take your mask off. Let's have a look at it, eh?
I'm starting to feel a little better.
Yeah, all right, okay, all right. You're a bit dry there, aren't you, eh? How's your breathing?
Is it fast?
Yeah, okay. All right. Okay, so you've got a long way to go today, so what we'll do is as I said, we'll see if we can get a bit of a lucky break here, but there's also got the transition in the 15 minutes there. So dizziness settling down a bit?
No.
No, is
A
it?
little. I've had a stomach bug or something, and I didn't think it would affect me like it did, and I don't know if that's what it was, or a combination with that and the heat, probably. At first, I just felt sluggish and slow, and then just got dizzy and just kept feeling worse and worse.
While the medical staff work to try and get Stokes rehydrated, out on the biathlon course, the Asian teams, perhaps more used to the heat and humidity, are making good progress. Power Bar Malaysia, one of the most experienced outfits in the race, are perhaps best acclimatized to Borneo's conditions. But Japan's East Wind are also cruising comfortably in the heat, along with Team China Tekgar. As the biathlon course winds its way relentlessly through the sweltering interior, some teams are intent on making up time, while others are simply surviving, including the reigning champions, Seagate.
We've had just problems this year so far, and so yesterday I had heart trouble and that cost us some time, and then today Hayden, one of my teammates, had a really bad day. He was just flat right from the start and needed a lot of support. I guess it'd be fair to say that so far for the race it doesn't feel like we've been racing. We've just been in survival mode and trying to get through the course in as less time as possible to sort of limit the damage.
As I said, we're letting you back on the course, but we want you to make sure you look after her.
We will look after her. Can I go put this helmet on?
Okay. She got something in the camel back there, is she?
Yeah.
All right. She's got a couple of gels with her.
Yeah, I got plenty for her.
Right.
On the refrigerator.
Right.
With Karen Stokes cleared to continue, the backmarkers finally set off on the biathlon. But with the ambulance following right behind, it would be just a few kilometres before the medical team were forced to withdraw Stokes for her own safety. Ahead at the next transition area, Nike ACG and Team FVB have already completed the biathlon. They now have to collect 2 more bikes for a 35-kilometre mountain bike leg that takes in some of the most beautiful scenery in Borneo. But Team Buff and a host of challengers are not far behind.
Yeah, it was a great mountain bike ride. A lot of really fun single track through some neat little villages and jungle, creek beds, and also great road riding, rolling hills, so good dirt roads, and we enjoyed it. We were by ourselves most of the day, and we're pacing ourselves, I think, well. And sometimes when you're by yourself, you can do that versus getting caught up in the competition and overheating. So that actually, I think, gave us a good, consistent effort throughout the day.
Save your bikes, guys.
At the head of the field, Team FVB are still Nike's closest rivals. But behind them, Team Buff are closing fast.
Get some really cold water poured down your necks, guys.
At the transition to mountain bikes, iRule's teamwork is in stark contrast to Nokia Adventure's disharmony.
Se on väärä laatikko! Se viereinen. Relax, mate. Jesus. Oh. He's dead.
As the Finnish quartet set off in pursuit of Nike, Japan's Team East Wind are again experiencing mechanical problems as they try to leave the transition area.
Okay, go, go.
As the chasing teams head away on the bike ride, they soon find the terrain becoming more dense as roads give way to jungle and single track.
Thank you.
Thank you.
After a few kilometres, the jungle opens out as the teams head through the village of Longong Kachil and on towards the ocean. For Nokia Adventure, the day continues to challenge teamwork and morale.
Siinä ehkä pikkusen meillä oli joukkueen jäsenten välillä turhaa etäistä toisiin, ei ajettu kimpassa ja siinä tapahtui pikkasen väsymyksiä siinä väsähtämisiä joukkueen sisällä ja Teijolla loppui sitten energia ja toi loppu menikin sitten enempi taistellessa. Meillä oli erittäin synkät hetket siinä puolessa välissä ja puolen välin jälkeen sinne pyöräilyyn näytti, että sieltä pääsi ollenkaan pois. Mutta loppu meni taas sitten hyvin, että loppu tuli taas ihan hyvin sitten.
For Nike ACG, there are no such problems as they head back inland. The expert mountain bikers have a 10-minute advantage over their closest rivals. But when they finish their mountain bike leg, they'll still have to negotiate the zipline adventure skill back at the tip of Borneo. As the chasing teams reach the beach area, the biggest move has been made by Team Switzerland, another of the quartet still with the adventure skill to face. They've now moved into 4th place.
My teammates are awesome for responding and listening and making sure that I'm okay, and I always ask them if they're okay, and and if you know someone's struggling, you just say, hey mate, come on, let's do it, we're almost there. And you really just have to be positive, and being positive with each other, you get such better results and good team dynamics.
For Nokia Adventures' Teo Lassinen, the problems continue to accumulate. The Finns are being stalked by a group that includes Team Montreal. The overall leaders, Irul, are also making ominous progress, but only one man feels he has time to spare for a little roadside chat.
Folks, how's it going? You got a minute?
Yeah, got a minute.
Okay, mate. Everything's going all right so far, but we're just pacing ourselves. We're trying to enjoy the terrain. My teammates have been awesome. I can't wait for the Vegemite. I get at the end of this transition. Catch you later, folks.
As the mountain bike draws to a close for Nike ACG, their 10-minute lead is still intact, and George Christensen's broken wrist has so far survived the ordeal. But behind them, Team FVB are having problems. Team Buff's remorseless pursuit has closed the gap, and over the final couple of kilometres, the two are locked in battle for second place as mechanical problems hit both teams in turn. For Nike ACG, the tip of Borneo is now in sight, with a 15-minute mandatory rest stop awaiting. They now have to decide whether to face the adventure skill before or after they take their break.
It would be quicker if we did it now,
Let's
because
do it, because
it's on the way.
if somebody else is there, we're hosed.
What are we looking for? Someone else there?
With no other teams in the transition area, the Stage 2 leaders sensibly decide to head up to the zipline while there are no backups. While Nike ACG make their way up to the tip of Borneo, the reigning champions Team Seagate are finding no end to their problems out on the mountain bike course.
The bike leg is one of our strengths, so we were looking to make some good time up on the bike. But we were slowed down with two punches. One of them was a pretty slow puncture change as well, just having some problems getting the tyre back on the rim.
The other thing is it could have been the stands just fizzing out from the side.
Other than that, the bike leg was really scenic and really beautiful. We enjoyed it. And the other good thing about the bike ride today was that there was quite a lot of cloud cover at certain times, so it wasn't as hot as what we were expecting. And for a few times we even had a headwind, which was a bit harder to ride in, but it's a lot nicer because it cools you off a little bit.
Attention zipline, the next team to you will be Team 3.
As Nike ACG prepare to set off on the zipline, they know that their real lead will only become apparent when they get back to the transition area. stage leaders re-enter the transition area, they now have a 15-minute period to rehydrate and rest. For George Christensen, it's a chance for some more running repairs on his broken wrist. Ahead lies a long kayak leg that will test the New Zealander's resolve.
It would be very painful indeed. He has got a fracture of his radius, which is his big bone in his arm, but he's doing very well. He's taking painkillers, but they're not very strong. And yeah, so the paddle will be the worst thing, I think.
As Christensen and Nike ACG get ready for the next leg, their pursuers pour into the transition area. Most, like Team Switzerland's Emily Miazga, are doing everything they can to reduce their body temperature and treat injuries.
That's kind of erotic, isn't it? Who would have ever guessed that adventure racing is an erotic activity? No.
Absolutely too hot.
My knee is really swollen right here, and it hurts like hell. I can barely bend it, but I have to continue.
Ahead of the already overcooked athletes lies the hottest part of the race in the midday sun. A 17-kilometre kayak along the coast back towards Kudat. As Nike ACG reach the beach after their rest break, they at last know their exact lead.
The lead team is on the kayak. The lead team is on the kayak, team number 3.
The overall race leaders, iRule, who began the stage with a 2.5-minute lead over Nike, set off 8 minutes behind their rivals. They're followed just a few seconds behind by Nokia Adventure, who despite their team problems have managed to stay in touch. As iRule pull away, they know that this may be their last chance to catch Nike and maintain their overall lead. For most teams, the 8-minute gap would be too much, but the New Zealand-based quartet are perhaps the strongest paddlers in the field. As the stage nears its climax, the result is far from certain.
Zipline, team incoming.
With the leaders already out on the kayak leg, a number of teams still have to negotiate the zip line. Out on the water, Nike ACG is still holding on to their lead. But as the kayak leg progresses, their 8-minute advantage is gradually being eaten away by Team iRule.
We had them in sight pretty much the whole way. Yeah, it was just a slow diminishing gap, basically. So yeah, it was a long, hard grind with a headwind, and he was always turning the boats a little bit. So that was a tough paddle. That was really tough.
But that headwind also brings some advantages.
The wind really helped cool things off. I think we all got a good sunburn on our legs and faces. But the heat wasn't that big of an issue, fortunately. But it was long, and the swells were pretty high, so it was slow going.
While Nike and iRule slug it out on the water, back at the tip of Borneo, Team Asta Factor's Harold Zundel is fighting his own battle. One of the most experienced athletes in the race his symptoms are similar to those that ended Karen Stokes' race.
It's really hot. I mean, I've been drinking a lot of fluids. It's not the fluid issue. I don't know, I might have a bug or something. I have no idea. I have no strength.
Lead team is approaching kayak drop.
The boat told one of our boats to go around the rocks. We decided, oh, let's go straight in, and we ended up just T-boning each other. It was humorous, but didn't cost us that much time, but it's a moment's frustration, yeah.
After 17 kilometers of paddling, a combination of George Christessen's wrist injury and I-Rule's strength has left the teams entering the final transition area neck and neck. As the teams climb the harbour wall, a surprise lies in wait before the final skate. Race organisers demand that athletes carry mandatory safety equipment on the ocean, and a missing piece of gear can result in a severe penalty. With both teams entering the checkpoint together, efficiency and teamwork are crucial.
Jacket. The throw bag.
Well, you need to show me the jacket. You're going to have to take it off anyway. You might as well take it out.
And you want me to unwrap it?
I'd like to see 4 jackets out here, please.
Got your jacket? 4 PFDs. I got. So we need.
We did a little tactical manoeuvre. I suggested to the guys that let's not muck around changing anything, leave our PFDs on, just get through transition, put our skates on and go. And that probably was a definitive move, because they were taking their helmets and bibs off, taking their PFDs off, putting their helmets and bibs back on. And that's where we passed them, probably took a minute or more out of them just there.
As I-Rule set off ahead of Nike, Team FVB enter the checkpoint, having passed Nokia Adventure out on the water. The Finns are nearing the end of their kayak leg, but for many the paddle seems an endless ordeal in the heat. As Power Bar Malaysia reach terra firma, a host of teams are already skating out on the road to Kudat, chasing the race leaders.
The lead skate team is on the road.
As I-Rule reach the outskirts of Kudat and approach the finish line, their lead has increased to more than a minute. But with George Christessen nursing his broken wrist, there seems no sense in Nike ACG taking any risks on the tarmac. For I-Rule, it's been a superb day's racing. Their performance on the kayak leg in the midday sun giving them a well-deserved victory in 6 hours, 6 minutes and 38 seconds. For Nike ACG, who held the lead for much of the day, Christessen's broken wrist proved too great a handicap on the kayak. They finished just under 2 minutes behind the race leaders.
It's really hot. I wouldn't be surprised if people haven't looked after themselves. There'll be some heat stroke today. We really looked after ourselves today, and we're still cooking really bad.
It was good.
We didn't
Exciting.
break the other arm, so we can't complain.
Really, he's got 3 limbs left for 3 days. I figure we're...
Oh.
He's an animal, I tell you what. Trooper, a guy that paddles and plays like that with a broken wrist.
Oh yeah.
That's off.
Great.
Oh, I fell over. I don't know if I got anything on my back, but
fell on my back. But it's, yeah, as long as I didn't fall on this. Just fall over backwards there on my bum. It's safe.
Team FVB Solid Pack, one of the best skating teams, maintained third place, finishing 9 minutes behind iRule. Behind them, an increasingly ragged-looking Nokia Adventure are being given a lesson in teamwork, as Team Switzerland passed them in fourth place.
These guys are the best to skate with. It's so fun. We fly. It's just great.
Nokia's captain, Petri Forsman, isn't quite so complimentary about his team.
Nothing goes what we have planned and talk about before the race, so that's the reason. Just do everything opposite what we have a talk of before, so it's not working like that.
Is the heat having an effect on the team or not? No, I don't think so.
A no comment from Petri, but Karen Stokes can vouch for the heat problems. Her Mastronet team are the first to fall by the wayside. Team Powerbar Malaysia are the leading Asian outfit in 11th, just over an hour off the lead, but less than a minute ahead of Japan's East Wind. Reigning champions Seagate's punctures and illness see them back in 6th place, more than 27 minutes off the pace. At the top, iRule claim the $5,000 stage prize and extend their overall lead to nearly 4.5 minutes over Nike, with FVB, Switzerland and Nokia trailing in their wake.
That does look quite good. The skin.
It's a busy evening for the race medical staff, with a wide variety of cuts, bumps and bruises to treat. George Christensen of Nike ACG needs further attention on his wrist, as does iRule's Marcel Hagener for a graze and some nasty sunburn.
Okay. And then you can see
But the most serious case is Karen Stokes, still feeling unwell and unsure whether she'll take any further part in the race.
I just spoke to the doctors and they said, you know, I probably won't have the strength to finish, but we didn't have huge expectations here, but we wanted to finish in place, and I blew it for us, so it sucked. It was horrible. But my teammates are cool, they seem to understand, because it could happen to anybody.
There's a little bit
Luckily today I was able to push through and finish today's stage. I definitely showed mentally that I'm strong. I could push through all that pain, but you know, tomorrow's a different day, and hopefully I'll have a better effort and better performance.
The mindset is to go hard but be cautious and work well as a team, look after each other. There's no point three of us getting to the end of any day with somebody blowing up, so we're constantly communicating at how we're all going, and if anybody's suffering more than the others, well, he gets looked after more than the others.
We're by ourselves most of the day, and we're pacing ourselves, I think, well. And sometimes when you're by yourself, you can do that versus getting caught up in the competition and overheating. So that actually, I think, gave us a good, consistent effort throughout the day, and it paid off, and we finished well. We'll take it day by day and try to be smart, and we'll see how it comes out in the end, and hopefully we'll make it to the finish line.
But ahead of the teams lies a stage that will test their adaptability and endurance to the limit, as the outdoor quest throws up some new challenges and more than a few surprises.